Welcome, trivalent beings of spirit, mind, and body. Time for the Ask Doc Alkebulanese Solutions show, sponsored by Prometheus Reborn Universal Foundation, also known as Proof. Its mission is to spread the trivalent understanding noetics, featuring stand-up philosophy that includes anthropology, psychology, biology, metaphysics, medicine, psychodrama, comedy, and music through a genre called edutainment, educating while entertaining, coined by KRS-One. The host of this wonderful show is Dr. Kwaku L. Carlisle Woods, RN, MD, MED1, and myself, co-host, Dr. Hamida Rockman Woods, MED, PhD, MED2. Well, I have the PH.
I have the M.
We
both have D's. That makes us Doc squared.
The title of today's show is How You Rock You Sight.
Wow. Yes, we are on the How You Rock You series. The How You Rock Y.O.U. The Y.O.U. stands for Your Own Understanding.
Yes.
So how do you rock your own understanding? We talked to you about sound last week. This week we're going into sight. But before we get there.
Yeah, and a side note, if you're on hold for a call, we will take calls toward the middle of the show.
Yeah, we will. But first, the Hip Hope Trio Plus performed this past Sunday. The guy we performed for, I know him a little bit. Then Reverend Stevie Marcus, he's kind of like extended family.
Yes, he married us, y'all.
Yes, he was the one who joined us together as man and wife.
Yes, he did.
Also, there was two of my favorite people, Rabbi Ben Goulson.
Yes.
And Reverend Johnny L. Price, who was my pastor.
Yeah.
Hot dog. And boy, when he got up on the podium, he ain't lost nothing. The boy's retired, but he ain't lost a thing. He tore it up. And we did too. I was very, very happy to see that my book, The Blessings of Slavery, is being talked about in places I did not know anything about. Reverend Goulson talked to Stevie about it, and Stevie acted like he didn't know me. And okay. But he came and bought a copy of The Blessings of Slavery after about an hour after Reverend Goulson told him about it. We had a wonderful time, and they fed us.
Not only food, but spiritually as well.
Yes, they did.
The music was anointed.
He brought his aunt from Georgia up, and she told us about her life in Georgia 50 years ago. She talked us through a day in her life, and it was so revealing, so energizing, so wow. And this was a normal day for almost every Alkebulanese in the South.
Yeah.
And several members of the audience said, right, we did that. Yeah, that's the way it went. That's, oh my God. Not no more, thank you, Lord. Okay, but let's get to the thing at hand. How you rock you. Sight. You normally rock sight with, believe it or not, the most superficial part of your brain. The most superficial part of your brain are these things called eyeballs. Eyeballs are not a part of your body. They are an extension of the sensory organ you call your brain. That's what these things are. And they communicate with the rest of your brain through at least two separate tracts that are altogether called the optic nerves. Now, we're going to have a picture in just a second of your eyes and its nerve tract that leads from the front of your face, where your eyes are, believe it or not, to the back of your head where you actually see. Let me get the other picture, please, sir. And then we'll come to that second. Magnificent, wonderful.
Yes.
Let me get the other picture, and we will talk to you about how sight is done. You can't. Yeah, that was it?
They got messed up.
They got mixed up.
Messed up.
They got messed up.
It was different files.
Okay, so we don't have the other picture. Okay, well, should be that one then. I'll just talk to that. Now, believe it or not, your eyes are in two different sections. The outer section of your eyes and the inner section of your eyes. The outer section of your eyes goes straight back from your eyes to that thing called the visual cortex, all the way in the back of your head. This is that little knot that's at the back of almost everybody's head. That's called the occipital lobe. And this is where you see at. You do not see in your eyes. You only see, believe it or not, in the back of your head. Now, it's called the visual cortex, and if you notice that bright yellow visual cortex is surrounded by a different yellow. This is the visual associate area. Believe it or not, your eyes see, they do not understand. It is the visual associate area that tells your brain what the picture or vision that you are looking at means. I'm seeing a large cat-like animal that weighs about 700-800 pounds, and he has great big incisor teeth. He is slowly walking toward me with his head down. What does that mean? The visual associate area will tell you, run! Because that means danger. You are looking at something that is looking at you as food. Okay. That's, believe it or not, the basics of your visual system. I told you the outside half, that's outside of your left, and the outside of your right eye goes straight back to that visual cortex. The inside of both of those eyes cross. The inside of your left eye crosses over to the right side, and the inside of your right eye crosses over to the left side. This crossover can sometimes give you some problems because some people after a stroke or some type of trauma to the head will often get one or more of those tracts either injured or invalidated, and the person who has that happen to them will have a jumbled up picture that's missing all of its inside, or inside on the right or the inside on the left, where your nerves cross, as right before your pituitary. So this is a very, very important area to your sight, but something that right now is much more important to your sight is something that our minds make us say that our sights do not see. Our minds make us say Europeans are white. But our eyes tell us, no, they're pink. Now, how did this get started? How did it get started that your eyes can tell you something that your mind totally and completely contradicts? How does that happen? Well, believe it or not, it's relatively recent. It didn't happen a long, long time ago. I'm reading from the New York Times, January 19th, 1904. And the New York Times, January the 19th, 1904, you got an article there. It's an article that's entitled On the Origin of the White Race. Now, believe it or not, is a very brief article. It only has like about maybe four or five at the very most paragraphs in it. And it explains of the Anglo-Saxon, the Celts, and Scandinavian races being white. Let me say that again. This article in the New York Times says that only the Anglo-Saxons, the Celts, and the Scandinavian races are being white. Now, somebody asked, does that mean they're of the Aryan race? The author of this article states, and it's called, his author is William Z. Ripley of Columbia College. He states that trace Aryan characteristics to the language of Europeans were Indo-Aryan, and they traced this characteristic to an Indo-European origin. They said that it came from India. They say that Celts, British, and Scandinavians come from India. They say that India is the cradle of civilization. In this article, they call it India the cradle of civilization. Imagine that. India. No, what happened was about 500 BC, India was invaded by pink people from the Caucasus Mountains. India had a group of I cannot think of the word for the group of Alkebulanese that populated India at that time. But they're most definitely and assuredly still there. But they were invaded by these pink people from the Caucasus Mountains. And India became one of the first purely hybrid human race groups on this planet. The writers of the article were saying that it was from these sources that, quote unquote, white Europeans flowed. Now, this was argued by Columbia College's Races of Europe, and it changed some of the thoughts about the origin of white people. But we can go much, much further back. You see, Europeans did not have a problem with being white once they started colonizing and taking our ancestors from Alkebulan to provide the labor and resources to create South America and North America. No, back in 1751, a guy that you might have heard of, his name was Benjamin Franklin. Ever heard of him? Ben Franklin said, and I quote, all of Africa, Asia, and America are black. He said all of these are swarthy, and that means black, races. Russia, Italy, Spain, France, Swedes, and Germans are also black. The principal whites are the Saxon and English. That's what Ben Franklin said. At the same time, while the King of Germany, George II, was also an Alkebulanese. Right. You see, Europeans did not have a problem with black people. They knew that that's where all the knowledge came from. They knew this was where the elders of humanity existed, and every place else was populated by them. If you wanted to really think that you were something, go get your children an Alkebulanese tutor, or have one in your house. That meant that you were high class. Europeans had problems with other people who were Europeans, who they said were not white. The Smithsonian Institute had a report for 1902. Again, this is about the same time this origin of the white race thing came out. It was written by M. Verneau. And on page 453, it says, the white Australian, white Irishman, white Dane, white Englishman, and white Scotsman are not Indo-European, but are of African origin, with the first Europeans being dark of color and long of head. That's called dolichocephalic. And dolichocephalic, or long-headed, is characteristic of Alkebulanese skulls. Newer scientific techniques such as DNA mapping have revealed that the human Homo sapiens sapien bloodline was infiltrated by a non-human species that originated in the ice and cold of Europe. They were first called Friedhofer ones, because that's who they were discovered by, scientists, anthropologists named Friedhofer. They were later changed to be known as Homo neanderthalensis. Homo neanderthalensis. We just call them Neanderthals. Now, Neanderthals were a unique group of humanoids. Notice the ridges of his brows. Now, believe it or not, this is not the complexion of a Neanderthal. Believe it or not, he's too dark to be a Neanderthal, because Neanderthals were stone white. Neanderthals had been created, bred, and lived in the iciness of Europe. As people, as beings, they started about 400,000 years ago. And they existed up until about 40,000 years ago. At that time, some of them had actually left the upper northern reaches of Europe and had actually migrated down to Spain, where it was actually warm. But most of their existence was spent in snow-covered, ice-laden reaches of northern Europe. They had thick coats of dark hair all over their body. And again, because they had no need for melanin, because they had no sun to block out, they wanted all the sun they could possibly get. That was the only way that they could get enough vitamin D to survive. So they had no, I repeat, no pigment in their skin to block sun's rays. They were white. And when the Alkebulanese that came up from Alkebulan into Europe saw them, they were repulsed and attracted. They ended up interbreeding with them. And that is the origin of the pink people that are called Europeans. They are the mixture of the brown Alkebulanese who migrated into Europe from Alkebulan, and this same report from the Smithsonian Institute says that, they had, I didn't write it. The first Europeans being dark of color and long of head. I said that before. These were the ones who came up from Alkebulan. And they have, believe it or not, in the past year or two, discovered some fossils of them and have made them out to look like my cousin, Leroy. These were the first Europeans before they started interbreeding with Neanderthals. Neanderthals, together with Denisovans, who infiltrated Asian DNA, They became the modifying forces that caused changes to the original Alkebulanese Homo sapiens. That's how we got Europeans. That's how we got Asians. Non-human, humanoids, Denisovans, and Neanderthals interbred with them to create those subspecies of Homo sapiens.
Wow.
Now,
wow.
Oh, absolutely. The oldest human toolkit was found in Kenya about 2 months ago. And it was a human toolkit that they estimated to be about 1.5 to 2 million years old. Our ancestors in Alkebulan was making, shaping, and forming instruments and things that they were going to be using out of their toolkits a couple of million years ago. You have to remember, our other ancestors just started breeding with Neanderthals about 30 to 60,000 years ago. That's how old, that's how young, that's how immature, that's how juvenile pink people are. And they act like it. Okay, but we don't have to go all the way to there. Let's take it all the way back to the Bible. The Bible gives you this same story that anthropology, history, genetics, and all the other sciences give you as well. The Bible states that the first God-made people were made in a place called the Garden of Eden. Y'all remember about that? This Garden of Eden supposedly had this big tree in the middle of the tree of life. Garden of Eden? Ha ha! Yeah, that big tree was what gave us a little problems, but it said in the Bible, in Genesis, that the Garden of Eden had 6 rivers that flowed out of it. One of them encompassed the whole land of Ethiopia. That says it has to be in Alkebulan. But more specifically, they have actually traced these rivers back to origin points that are in the country that we call South Africa. Trevor, Noah, that's our boy. Your hometown. That's where human beings.
Patricia's son.
Yeah, Patricia's boy. That's where humanity started. According to science, according to biology, according to genetics, and according to the Bible. Now, how come pink people didn't understand this? Or did they and simply chose to lie about it? Because in everything that came out from the Roman Catholic Church, all of the first people were pink. That's a lie. And they knew it was a lie. All they had to do was read the book that they were pushing out to everybody else. And it would have not just told the truth, it would have shown you the truth. Because all of the first pictures of the disciples, Yeshua ben Joseph, who Europeans call Jesus, were all Alkebulanese. Everybody in that same book that they pushing called the Roman Catholic Bible, everybody in that was Alkebulanese. The only Europeans in that book were the Romans who killed him. Okay, they understood that, but they did not want to be who they were. They did not want to be who the Bible said they were. They did not want to be who history said they were. They did not want to be who anthropology said they were. So they decided, okay, we're going to create a fantasy that we're those first people. And we're going to convince everybody that they need to endow this fantasy with reality, or else we're going to torture them and burn them alive. Because that's what we do to folks who don't believe our lies and who don't mouth them exactly as we give them to it.
Trained.
Okay. We got a problem in the Bible, in that same Judeo-Christian book, because one question that has always kind of messed with me is the Genesis rendition of the first family. When they talked about Adam and Eve creating two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel, left him with one. And then Cain went off and got married. Who did he get married to?
Right.
God made people were Adam and Eve. And the people that came from God made people were Cain and Abel. There were some other humanoids that weren't God made. We talked about Neanderthals and all the rest of the other humanoids that were around. Denisovans and Neanderthals were not the only other humanoids. We had at least 5 other humanoids that no longer exist. One called Pithecanthropus erectus. I always remember that name. One I remember as Java Man. Another one I was known as Peking Man. These other humanoids were all around, though they weren't the first Homo sapiens. According to the Judeo-Christian book that we just referenced, Adam and Eve were. Those were the first God-made people, and they were Alkebulanese. Okay. Let me illustrate just how everybody was deceived by the difference between what they wanted you to say and what your eyes saw. We got something, color versus race. Pink people did not think that color made race. At least not originally, because people who had the same color as them, according to them, weren't white. So color, according to them, did not create or make race. I got something called spiritual maturity that I'm going to be giving a whole class on. And it basically gives you different images to think about. When you are spiritually immature, you think about immature, childish images. Think about what a 9 month, 1 year, year and a half child thinks about. That's a species that is 10, 20,000 years old. They get older. They are now thinking like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. They get to be about 30, 40,000 years old. They're thinking like a 9-year-old. Mine, I want. What you, no, you have to do what I say. You have, sound familiar? Sound like something you heard? Sound like what the Republicans are saying right now and trying to do? That is spiritual immaturity. They don't recognize that people are individuals. Individuals. In means not. Divvy means to separate or divide. And duals, of course, mean two. So unseparated dualities. That's every individual. They did not understand that. And spiritual immaturity is the cause. So not understanding that, you think and you believe everybody ought to be like you. No, they're individuals. They ought to be like themselves. When you're an immature species, that never comes into your mind except through time. And that comes in through time slowly. Few individuals at a time. As they come back to this reality that we call life with an older spirit, they can now be more spiritually mature. Okay, y'all, let's talk about ignorance / fear versus understanding / courage and truth. This is how everybody is deceived. Let me tell you a story that I've told you several times. It's about me as a 3-year-old. I was frightened of snakes and spiders. They scared me. So one day the bookmobile came, and I learned to read when I was like 1.5 or 2 years old. By the time I was 3, I was a good reader. I went to the bookmobile and was the only toddler at the bookmobile. I asked the librarian for a book about snakes and spiders. And she gave me one, and I sat there and read it. By the time I finished that book, I no longer was afraid of snakes or spiders. And it occurred to me, I now understood them. I understand that there's only 2 snakes I need to worry about, a cottonmouth and a coral snake. And I know how to identify them, and I know they're nowhere near me. The only spiders I need to worry about basically is a brown recluse and a black widow. And a brown recluse will run from me. And the black widow is so hard to find. Most people are bitten by them unawares because they're not found. Once I understood this, I had no more fear. And it occurred to me, fear is ignorance. And once you understand what you're ignorant about, you no longer fear it. Europeans were kept ignorant and fearful by the Roman Catholic Church. They were forbidden from listening to any of the science, any of the history, any of the anthropology, or any of the knowledge that they had in Alkebulan or Asia. No. That stuff is evil, that stuff is sinful, that stuff may be satanic. No, and they were forbidden from using reason. A dictate from the Pope said, no, you should never use reason in any argument or discussion. Revelation is what you should use rather than reason. This is the basis of European thinking, European sight. And this is why when they were told that pink was white and white wasn't white, they believed it. They acted like they believed it. And they didn't try to get any understanding, because trying to get understanding meant that you were trying to be reasonable. And they might have to torture you or burn you alive because you might be satanic.
Consider taking call now?
Yes, we can consider taking a call now. Do we have a caller? Is anybody there who wants to ask Doc a question?
I think we do.
Okay.
I think we do have one caller.
Good.
We have, I think, Shanae on the line.
All right,
Shanae, are you
Shanae.
there?
Okay.
All right.
It says she's there.
Is it
All
say
right.
she's there? Okay.
Well, hopefully.
Shanae.
Shanae, are you muted? Have you muted yourself?
Oh,
Yes,
there
I
you go.
was muted. I was coming back to my phone. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Shanae.
Shanae, you know your
Hi.
name is not Shanae Nay, is it? Your name is just Shanae.
Nope, but my my family used to call me that long before Mark.
Oh my God. Okay, all right, but you go by Shanae.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's a wonderful thing. We are Doc². Please ask us a question.
When you mentioned spiritual awareness, maturity.
Spiritual maturity,
actually.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, spiritual maturity. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like when do you?
Sure.
Okay.
I definitely can. A normal human being grows up in stages and grows up in very easily defined phases, spaces. Infancy, toddler, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, seniority, death. Okay? Those are normally the stages assigned to human growth. Those are very much also the stages assigned to spiritual growth. When you are an infant, you are thinking about you. I need to be changed. I need to be comfortable. I need to be fed. I need to have a bowel movement. I. It is all about you. And it needs to be. Because you have just come into this reality and your job is to start taking in symbols so that you can think about them and understand where you are. Now, let me back up just a little bit. Your spirit does three things. Your spirit enables, your spirit protects, and your spirit visualizes or imagines. Now, under each of these headings, I have broken down specific things that spirits do under enable, under protect, and under visualizing or imagining. The one thing that we are most comfortable and familiar with the spirit doing is imagining or visualizing inside your mind. Now, we have been looking inside the brain for what's called an engram. This is the pictures that your spirit gives to your mind. Your spirit gives these pictures to your mind so that your mind can think about them, compare them, evaluate them, make decisions based on these pictures. And your infancy is spent gathering all of these pictures. That's why it's got to be about you. You get into childhood after you go through the toddler stage where you're actually still just collecting images. Now, you have gotten to a place where you have relationships with people that are not your mama, your daddy, and your sibs. But your mama, your daddy, and your sibs all did anything you asked them to. And you thought that was the way life was. That you were just going to tell people to do things and they were going to do them. Right about childhood, you start running up against other children your same age and you discover they think just like you do. They want everybody to do what they think. They want everybody to do what they say. They want every wish to be followed, and you have a decision to make. Do I follow them or do I make them follow me? Or do I simply withdraw? Mm-hmm. This is where you create your personality. Am I going to be a follower? Am I going to be a leader? Or am I just going to divorce myself away from relationships? Above that, let me give one more statement to that. Your images are now not all about you. Your images now take in all of these other beings who also, like you, want everybody to do what they say, they think. And you now are in a relationship with your peers. And you have decided, again, how you're going to deal with that. Are you going to be a leader, follower, or neither one? You're just going to withdraw. Now let's go to, I don't want to go to pre-pubescence. Let's just go to adolescence. You are now maturing physically. You're getting more size. You're getting more function. And your sexual awareness is just starting to be turned on. You're starting to not want to be around, believe it or not, those of the opposite sex because they make you feel funny.
That's when they start teasing each other.
Exactly. That's when they start talking about each other, teasing each other, and carrying on. We're talking about the ages from about 9 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You now have a different image that you are thinking about. These are images of people your age, opposite sex. You've never thought about it like them like that before in your life. But it's these images that propel your living. You cannot think about anything that you don't have a picture for. Try thinking about something you don't have an image for. Go ahead, I'll wait. Okay, you can't do it. It's impossible because that's not how human minds work. They must be fed by images from your spirit. And it is only those images that you consider, think about, evaluate, and do all the other stuff that a mind is supposed to do. And now you are getting different images, and your mind is thinking different thoughts that you've never thought before about those images. Let's take you about another 5 to 6 years ahead, and now you're 19, 20, and you are really into those people of your age or the opposite sex. You are into them so much that you will do almost anything now to be with them when you were avoiding them 5, 6 years ago. Because the images that you have now are fueled by a whole lot of movies, pictures, videos, and other things that are putting you into a state where your sexual abilities are being called upon. And that's bringing you a whole new image of life. You're not just thinking about you anymore. You're thinking about you and that significant other. And that forms the basis of just about all of your thoughts and actions. You and that significant other person. Let's get you a little bit further on down the line. Let's take you to 35, 40. 35, 40, you are not now just thinking about you, of course. You stopped that some years ago. And you're not now just thinking about you and a significant other. You are thinking about family. You're thinking about children. If you don't already have them, you're thinking about getting them. And it doesn't make any difference if you're male, female, race, religion. It doesn't make no difference. This is humanity. And now you're thinking about not just more than yourself, you're thinking about wider than your family. And that extends out into the community, that extends to the city, state, even country. You are now called on to be patriotic and to think those types of thoughts because you are entertaining those types of images. Let you go another 20 years and you are now not thinking about family anymore. you're thinking about eternity. You're thinking about what you're going to leave and how you're going to leave them here. You're thinking about your purpose and your reason for living. Was it successful? And do you have something to pass on to those who will be here after you? Now, that's normal human growth and development. And you normally grow through spiritual maturity. Those images that change from age to age are spiritual. All images are spiritual, especially if they're inside you. A being who is not spiritually mature, that means a being from a group that hadn't been here in living in this life for very long, they don't get to be mature very often. Not very many of them, period. They are still very immature as a species, and they act and think like immature humans. It's about them. It's about what I think. It's about what I need. It's about what I believe, and everybody else ought to do what I say. Like a 3-year-old. Like a 4-year-old. This is what I hear Republicans who are 50 and 60 telling the world. That they ought to do like I say do. They ought to think like I think. They ought to pray like I pray. They ought to, it's all about me. It's all about what I believe. That is juvenile. It takes nothing into account about history, anthropology, science, spirituality. Oh, no. None of that, because those are images these immature beings, these immature spiritual beings, have not entertained. They will, if they are allowed to live long enough. And I'm not talking about the individuals, I'm talking about the people. If the people are allowed to live long enough, they will mature so that they become more and more fixed on, not themselves, the group. And not just a family group, the whole group of human beings. And when they really get good, all of life. Now, does that kind of give you an insight into what spiritual maturity is, my sister?
Yes, it does. I appreciate that. I wrote a lot of notes.
Well, let me give you one more little bit to scribble on.
Okay.
We are becoming more spiritually mature. It is my job, it is my purpose, it is why I came into life, to teach pink people who they are and how to use who they are, and to allow them to get spiritually mature. This is not my plan. This is the Most High's plan. And it's obviously been the Most High's plan since the very beginnings of life on earth. Again, go back to the Judeo-Christian book called the Bible. God chose Israelites, and these were an Alkebulanese people, which science has proven them to be, as his quote-unquote special chosen people. Now, I don't know much about God, but I can tell you 3 things about God, this Christian Judeo God. Number 1, I'm not him/her. I know that for a fact. I ain't God. Number 2, God is a scientist, because everything that he put together and functions in this reality functions by the laws of science. Last but not least, I can tell you what type of scientist he was. She/he was a geneticist. Why do I say that? read your Genesis. Because the first thing God did once he got people here was start to combine them with other species. And the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and each took wife, and each came out of that union giants and mighty men. These were called the Nephilim. And good. First thing God did was hybridize human beings with him, or quote unquote the sons of God, and he created these giants who he couldn't control. That was why the flood happened. The flood I don't believe, had very much to do with evil humanity. It had to do with Nephilim that God could not control. All the Nephilim, or at least most of them, were drowned. That was the cause. But God, again, told the Israelites, you're my special people, and because you're my special people, I don't want you to interbreed with anybody else. When you take over a country or a city, I want you to kill all of the sheep, all the animals, and send all the people away or kill them. Do not interbreed with them. This was a commandment God gave on the Israelites, and as a commandment they kept breaking. Why is this important? Well, if you isolate a species, you want that species not to interbreed with anybody else that you don't want them interbreeding with, because that messes up your genetic line. You want to separate your chosen group and have that chosen group as a chosen group only interbreed within itself. That keeps them the same. That keeps them chosen. The Israelites didn't do that, and God kept warning them, if you quit, I'll take you back and make you really great. If you continue to interbreed with everybody else, I'm going to choose a different special people. The Jews never did. God chose somebody else. That's why when they were taken off to Europe and interbred with all those pink people there, they came out looking like they do now. Okay.
All right.
I had to end that, my sister. When you call Doc to ask Doc, you have a maximum of 2 questions. Is there anything else I can answer for you?
Not this. How often do you do this?
Every week.
Do you do your
Every Wednesday, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
But you can go online. You can go online with us at Prometheus Reborn FDN.
Well, actually, that's our email.
Okay, you can go online you can email us at Prometheus Reborn FDN 111 at gmail.com.
You can also go to hashtag woke and in tune on YouTube.
Or you can go to the Meta channel. And I spell Meta, METTAH channel on YouTube.
Or Facebook.
Or Facebook, yes. And we have all our videos there, and you can find out what it is to be Meta. Meta is better. It is. And I'm not just saying that off the top of my head, my sister. We will change how you function from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet in 133 seconds. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I told the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers the exact same thing in 2016, and he told me, Doc, that's a little grandiose. Doc, that's a little hyperbolic. I don't know about this 133 seconds thing. What you talking about? And then 10 minutes later, he and his assistant were walking around their office saying, Doc, this is impossible. Doc, this is amazing. Doc, you can't do this. When it's obvious, I not only could, I did.
We're so happy that you were able to call us and ask Doc a question. We want him to move on. So
I know you do, but hold on, I ain't through.
And I got something else to say before she leaves.
Okay, do you follow sports at all, my sister?
No.
Okay, so you won't know what happened to the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers.
2016 Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Okay, the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers won their first and only NBA championship. I did not.
That was back by this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I did not cause them to win that championship. A guy named LeBron had something to do with it. A guy named Kyrie might have hit a 3 or 50. I don't know. But I can honestly say I helped. And then you know what the Cleveland Cavaliers did to that general manager? They fired him. Yes, ma'am. He is the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans now. And we'll be going back down to New Orleans, the Lord says the same, next week.
Right. Doc, I wanted to say, Shanae, if you want to also, Doc teaches something called the Trivalent Understanding Noetics, and I think we spoke about that. And if you want to take classes, because he does teach whole families, and he actually got a good recommendation. I mean, good not recommendation, but a pat on the back earlier today by one of his pupils. But y'all want to tell her how she can get in touch with you about that?
Yes, ma'am. Call area code 216-375-2742, and we can schedule you for class.
Okay, whose number is that?
Yes, ma'am. Area code 216-375-2742.
Oh, no, I was saying, whose number is that?
Oh, whose number is that? Okay, that's my wife.
Dr. Woods.
Dr. Woods. That's Doc Squared.
We're Doc Squared.
We are.
There's two of us.
It is most definitely.
One's medicine, one's education. It is now 8:59.
Okay, we got to. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I got to move on.
So, Shanae, please call in every show and tell people about us, please. And we're going to have different topics. If you want to listen to, like you said, any of our other videos, we cover a large variety of topics. And we really teach you about your acronym, actually, your own understanding.
Absolutely. That's what this show is.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
May the Lord bless you and the ancestors protect you.
Absolutely.
And please still keep listening, because we got a little bit more to go.
Yes, we do. And I got to get to it right now. Was God in Africa before Christianity and Islam? Was God in Alkebulan? Africa is the name Europeans gave the continent that our ancestors called Alkebulan. Was God in Alkebulan? Yeah, he was. God was not only there, what most people consider to be Christianity and Islam are actually Alkebulanese religions. Yeah. I asked, I told y'all about this Sunday performance that we did at Stevie Marcus' church. While we was there, I asked the audience, where was Yeshua ben Yosef, and that's the real name of the person that Europeans call Jesus Christ, where did he grow up? Reverend Goulson, who was touting my book, The Blessings of Slavery, threw his hand up in there and said, Bethlehem! And I looked at him and shook my head. No, sir, my brother, that's where he was born. Where did he grow up? If you remember, that night that he was born in Bethlehem, his father got a message from the Most High that Herod was out to kill them, and they got up that next morning and moved to Alkebulan, place called Kemet. The Europeans call it Egypt. But this is where Jews came from. Y'all remember this guy named Moses? And you remember all the children of Israel down in Kemet? Yeah, they come from Alkebulan. But more importantly, the person that Europeans are trying to say is their Lord and Savior grew up in Alkebulan, wrote an Alkebulanese book about, he didn't write it, but he is a star pupil in this Alkebulanese book about an Alkebulanese religion from an Alkebulanese man who was raised in where? Alkebulan. So was God in Alkebulan before Christianity? Before, during, and after. It is the ignorance of Europeans, and specifically the Roman Catholic Church, who has professed and pushed this ignorance, that keeps them from understanding who the hell they are and what the hell they're doing. Okay. There's no books in the Roman Catholic Church Bible from James, the brother of Yeshua, or Mary Magdalene. Why? Because they all discuss his childhood. They all discuss his growing up in Alkebulan. They all discuss his life in Alkebulan. They all discuss the fact that he was more Alkebulanese than he was any damn thing. But they all were Alkebulanese. It was suggested by many that Moses was raised as Pharaoh's grandson, and he was taught his lineage, the lineage of Pharaoh. That's what Moses, who was supposed to be held as the Pharaoh's daughter's child, would be taught. He would be taught about Akhenaten, who was about 2500 BC, also known as Amenhotep IV. He stated this was long before Yeshua ben Joseph or Moses was ever born. He stated, "There's only one God, my Father, and I can reach him day or night." This is 2,500 years before Moses. One more thing, and then we got another call. It was suggested by many that Amenhotep was actually the founder of the Judeo-Christian religion. Sigmund Freud, listen to this. My wife was shocked. Sigmund Freud argued that Moses was an Atenist priest. God was called Aten. He was also called Ra by Amenhotep. Sigmund Freud argued that Moses was an Atenist priest who had been forced to leave Kemet with his followers after the heretic king's death, after Amenhotep's death. Freud believed that Moses achieved the monotheism that Amenhotep sought to promote. We got another caller. Did somebody tell me? Okay. Caller.
Yes, we got another caller. Caller, you got a lot of noise in the background. Can you go somewhere quiet or in a quiet room?
Or mute the device you're listening to us on. There you go.
So what's your name?
Caller, your name is? Okay.
Oh, I'm just listening. Is this me?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm just listening. I was just listening. I wasn't chiming in just yet. I'm
Okay.
interested in all the good information you got there.
Okay.
This is who's calling? What's your name?
This is Mr. King.
Mr. King. Okay.
How you doing, Mr. King?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, man.
Thanks for listening, Mr. King.
Beautiful,
We
beautiful,
appreciate
beautiful.
You can
Thanks
hold
for
on
this
for
good knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, you can hold on for a second. If you got a question, just let us know.
you. Yes, because I got about a paragraph more to go.
And a song.
Okay,
And
keep
a
reading
song.
now. I'll just wait to the end.
Okay, my brother. All right.
Hold on.
All right.
Kemetans saw monotheism as radical. Now, Amenhotep tried to introduce him to monotheism, one God. That's him. Nefertiti was his wife. But he had problems, and his problems were because many of the priests who served all these 25 or 60 gods that Kemetans had worshiped now were out of a job. Now the idol makers couldn't make the idols. Now people who were selling incense couldn't sell the incense. There was a whole lot of jobs that was being lost because now there was only one God. And many Kemetans now started to worry about the security of the afterlife. since the gods of the afterlife were not being worshipped. So what's going to happen when I die? Am I going to still have my heart weighed against a feather? Is all that stuff going to still happen or what? The old gods were tangible and viable, where Aten was essentially light. And just too ethereal a concept for them to grasp at that time. Again, we talked about spiritual maturity. They weren't spiritually that mature. This was 2,500 years before Yeshua ben Yosef was born. So they hadn't been here but about a million years. So no, they weren't as spiritually mature as they came to be much, much later. The old gods were easy to worship. They were touchable. They had hawk's heads and hippopotamus tusk, and they were very quote unquote real. Aten, light, wasn't, and they had a hard time grasping the fact that God was light. Now, like the trivalent understanding noetics and its presentations of spirit, where you have always been, what you have always known, but never understood. We give you that understanding to eliminate those fears so that you can grasp the understanding of your spirit and use it, grow it. Spirit, like light, is non-material. You have always had spirit like you've always had light.
Yes.
You have never been taught how to use light or spirit. Am I wrong? We got any people out there using lasers? Okay, I didn't think so. We present your own understanding, Y.O.U, to you. What you gonna do? There is right in front of you the opportunity to be more than you ever have been. And again, this ain't a forever thing. No. We can change who you are in less than 2 minutes, from head to toe. But forget about that. Just think about you and the things about you know, but don't understand. You know that you're made up of a material portion called a body, an immaterial portion called a spirit, and a partially material, partially immaterial portion called a mind. How do you work them? How do you strengthen them? How do they coordinate? How do you make them more effective? You've never been taught that because the people in charge of this civilization don't understand that. The newest science known to man is noetic science. I'm a member of the Institute of Noetic Science. Noetic science is the science of faith, belief, and intention. Not religious. It's the basis on which all religions are founded. How does your faith function? How does your spirit work? We teach you those things, and those are things that you have come here to understand. We do it. It's up to you what you gonna do.
Ashe and amen.
Okay, any more questions? We got a song we need to sing.
Caller, are you still there? And if so, do you have a question?
I'm still here. I think my question is probably more for private and not public.
Okay. All right, then, our vision. This was how you do you, dash, vision. It's about what you see, both outside of you and inside of you. One of the things that we see inside of us, we have been given by those who say they love us. We have been given their disappointments, their fears, their angers, their inability to be what they wanted. Those are passed down parent to child. We call those things the grapes of wrath. And there's a guy named John Steinbeck that wrote a book, a novel that was turned into a movie about the grapes of wrath. He said it was a force, a disabling force that a people whose purpose has been blocked create and pass down. That fear is from a image that is in your parents' spirit, and they pass that image down to their children. We got a song written originally by Mississippi Charles Bevel. Mississippi Charles Bevel told us we could use it. He named the song the Not of Season because he said that it was actually about human mating and what they do to the offspring of the mating, their children. And he said that human beings are the only living things, only living animals on this planet that have no mating season. Y'all know it's true. We make 24/7, 365. Come on now. He allowed us to do a little bit of altering, and we called our song simply The Grapes of Wrath. So we would like the Hip Hop Trio Plus, I'm the plus, to present to you The Grapes of Wrath.
Babies coming to this world, not a season. Even if we don't, they know the reasons. And the one who sends them, gives them gifts to care. Tells them, children, take your time, but do not tarry. You will all arrive but naked, endowed to make it. You should have everything you need when you get there. But you should never have to eat the grapes of wrath. You should never have to eat the grapes of wrath. Gods and babies, they don't know how we are divided. If they did to send them, never would have been decided. Red and brown, black and white, how we mock them. Rich and poor, high or low, is how we stop them. Why do we make those distinctions when we don't have an inkling of what each child will bring, how they'll share? We just take their gifts and crush like we don't care. Then we send them out to harvest the grapes of wrath. Yes, we send them out to harvest the grapes of wrath. They should never have to eat the grapes of wrath. They should never have to eat the grapes of wrath. So we all get in line for a young one. none. And the children chose by rich ones will be pampered, while the children left to poor ones will be hampered. Why do we act like such heathens when every known religion teaches us each and every child is in our care? But we just take their gifts and crush them like we don't care. Then we send them out to harvest the grapes of wrath.
Yes, we send them out to harvest. Yes, we send them out to harvest.
Yes, we send them out to harvest
The grapes of
wrath. Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yes. The grapes
The
of
grapes
wrath.
of wrath. We need to not taste that bitter vintage from those grapes. And we need to not make our children suffer through
Hey.
our defeats.
Hey, Doc, I think we got another caller. I think it's Shelly. Is Michelle there? Shelly K?
Shelly K played the
Yeah,
violin on that song. That was her.
Yes, that's who's talking, y'all.
That's exactly. Shelly K, hey.
Yes.
You got a question?
Hey. Yes, good question. They tie into each other.
Come on.
One, I wanted to ask, what is true manifestation? And also, how do you become financially free?
Okay, what is true manifestation?
Yes.
I don't
How you
understand
do
the
it?
question. I don't understand the question. Manifest what? Because
Manifestation.
I don't know what that involves. I simply don't understand the question.
Okay, I'll put it into you in simpler terms. The
Okay.
basis of manifestation is this is what people call it, manifestation, being able to manifest whatever it is you desire. So how do you do it?
How do you do that? Okay. Now I understand the question. Now understanding the question, I can search for an answer. Manifestation. Okay. Again, noetic science, one of the aspects of it is how to turn what you imagine into your reality. That is done through spirit. You envision what you want to occur. You envision the reality that you wish to inhabit. And you envision it with great detail. You envision it with great spiritual energy. You envision it with great frequency. Using those three techniques will allow you to manifest anything you can imagine. Again, pyramid paradigm. There is a figure in geometry called a pyramid. It has the base, the sides that go up from the base, and the point at the top where the sides meet. The pyramid paradigm has one question. How many different ways is it to go from the bottom of the pyramid to the top? The answer is not 0, not 1,000,000. The answer is, how many different ways is it to go from the bottom of the pyramid to the top? As many as you can imagine. If you can only imagine one, that's how many it is. If you can imagine 653, that's 653. If you can imagine 4,791,000, that's how many exist. And anything that you imagine, you can make reality. That's manifesting, I think. Now, the second question was?
How do you become financially free?
Okay. How do you become financially free? First and foremost, quit being broke. Now, hold on.
Yes.
That sounds too simple, but unfortunately, through the through the mentoring I got while I was medical director at Cicely Island Medical Center in Cicely Island, Louisiana, I was made to understand that all Americans are trained to be broke. We are trained not to have money. You don't believe me? Okay, you just did. I'm gonna do to you just like they did to us. He said, okay, we had a whole auditorium full of people. He said, everybody in here, you've been trained to be broke. Let me prove it. You just got paid. You just got your check cashed. What's the first thing you do? Somebody raised a hand. Well, it was really about 10 or 12 people raised a hand. And he's called on one. What you do? I'm going to pay my rent. No. Okay, what you going to do? I'm going to pay my mortgage. Okay, what you going to do? I'm going to pay my car note. Or what you going to do? I'm going to pay the electricity. Everybody came up with a different bill that they were going to take care of. That is the training that keeps you broke. Because the first person you should ever pay is you. You earned the money. You should give yourself 10 to 15% of whatever you earn. And this is not mad money. This is not go and buy myself something nice. No. This is your nest egg. This is you paying you so that you are not ever broke and that money keeps growing every time you get paid. Now, after you pay yourself, you pay your bills, just as you should, making sure that you have enough money at the end, put aside, to take you from this paycheck to the next paycheck. You pay as many people as you can till your paying other people money runs out. And then you call the people you didn't pay. And you explain to them what you are doing. And you ran out of money on them before it got to them. But that puts them at the top of the line for next paycheck. You only have to explain this to people once or twice before they never call you about not paying your bills. Because they understand you have a plan. And that plan is to not be broke. And you are never going to be broke. And you can pay them at any time you desire. But you desire to pay them when it's at your convenience, not theirs. Last but not least, never put your money in a bank. Never, I repeat, put your money in a bank. A bank's job, a bank's design, a bank's whole modus operandi is to make money off your money. Sometimes that means taking some of your money for theirs. NSF fees and other little fees that they charge you, that's taking your money for theirs. Mm-hmm. Their job is to make money on your money. That is the only reason for their existence. You need to instead find yourself a good credit union. A credit union's job is to keep its members financially stable. Its job is not to make money on your money. Its job is to keep its members financially stable. My wife and I are members of the Cleveland Police Credit Union, though neither one of us has been a Cleveland police. But our credit union keeps us financially stable. And our credit union will give us $1,000 or $2,000 just off. Hey, Doc, you running low on this. You need some more. Here. I ain't asked for it. And this has happened on several occasions where they have just given me money. And gave me great advice. I called my credit union yesterday. Was that yesterday we talked to Shelly? Yesterday. That was yesterday. I called and talked to my favorite clerk there, Shelly. You better be watching this, Shelly. And I asked her about paying my Visa card. Since my Social Security money hadn't come through yet, and my bank account wasn't where I would like it to be, I said, okay, the $1,000 or so that I owe Visa, I'm not I'm not going to pay. And Shelley told me, okay, fine. Wait until your Social Security come in. But you should pay them the $25 minimum so that you don't get that put against your credit record. I said, okay.
They don't charge them a late fee.
They don't charge them a late fee, and it's not something that causes your credit rating to go down. I said, yes, Shelley, please go ahead and take care of that. That's what a credit union does for you. I was shocked when my wife and I decided we were going to buy a new home. And as a result of us doing that, we were talking to, and we got to call her back. As we talked to our realtor agent, she said, well, what's your credit score, Doc? And I said, I don't know. I don't use credit for anything at all. So she said, well, okay, let me just check it and see. And what's your Social Security number? And I gave her my Social Security number. She checked it. She said, Doc, your credit score is 720. I said, is that good? She said, that's great. That ain't good. That's great. That's you won't find nobody with a credit score that high. Why was my credit score that high? My credit union.
And because he paid how much is due before it comes due.
I pay once a month, and I pay when my money comes through, and yeah,
right,
just
and
like,
you pay,
and I pay everything
that happens before.
Yeah, it's due generally,
yes.
And I pay off everything that's on my credit card.
Yes,
and I do that every month. But again, I'm doing what my credit union tells me to do because their job is to make sure I am financially secure, I am financially stable, I am financially on the one. And they do that to the nth degree. A bank's job is not to do that. A bank's job is to take every red cent you got if it means they get it. Okay, does that make sense to you, my sister?
Of course. Thank you, Doc.
Hot dog. Shelly K, I know I love you. You
Doc,
know that, right?
I want to add to that.
Please.
Just me personally.
Okay.
It's really also a spirit mentality thing. When the way you believe and what you think and the images you put in your mind, of course, Doc knows this, is what you become.
True.
So when you talk about manifestation, me personally, that's how I manifest things in my life, and I get nothing. I really have nothing but abundance because it's really your spirit, your the images you feed your spirit, and then your mindset.
And your mindset will result from the images that you feed your spirit. He ain't been going to classes all these years for nothing. He picked up what he was supposed to pick up. And yeah, he is absolutely correct.
Oh.
Okay.
He is. Thank you for your insight.
Tell your family I love them too.
We're
tell
watching,
your sister, tell your brother.
Hi.
Tell your mother whose name I do not remember.
Family. We love y'all.
And tell your dad, especially Matt. Ow!
Yes. We appreciate him.
All righty.
Appreciate him. Yes, we do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Peace.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Okay. Is that it?
I do believe. No other questions.
No other
any
questions?
callers? And we will wrap this. Hold on, somebody's saying something here.
Somebody's still on the line.
Somebody on the line?
No. I was just saying that was a great question, and I appreciate your response.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
Well, we look forward
your appreciation.
We look forward for you to keep watching us and to call in next Wednesday with some other great questions.
Yes.
And hopefully you can join the class.
Yes, indeed. If the Lord says the same and the ancestors agree.
Yes, give us a call.
Give us a call.
216-375-2742.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so very welcome.
Peace.
And so we got to wish you peace. Which is
proper education.
I'm sorry, let's go ahead and do it your way, baby. Proper education always corrects errors. We say it at the end of every show. We say it at the end of every email. We say it at the end of every letter because it is the answer to every question. Proper education.
Well, I am tired a little bit differently. I'm dressed as Baba Amwa. Oh, you made it to the end of the video. Well, I am tired a little bit differently. I'm dressed as Baba Amwa. If you would like more of your own understanding, like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
And go to the sites that we have listed around us. The Most High is good.
And the ancestors are kind.
Thanks
for having us on your minds.
Peace.